Alright guys, this is the same gear as yesterday. We're in the second shave of August, and Austere August, I'm using the same gear all the time. Chiseled face, midnight stag, not too much left in this soap tub. The Nacet blade, and I made a mistake in the video talking about 555 uses. I was off by 10, but my card was correct if anybody bothered to check it. End of the description of the video and the notes, the title of the video had the correct count, despite I said the wrong thing. But today is 546 would be the use count for today. The brush continues to be the B13, and this is a Briar Brushworks Dogwood Handcrafts hybrid handle, and it's a 28 millimeter B13 knot. And the stainless steel open comb timeless razor, 68 gap, is a one of the few that I have that will hold the Nacet and make it be usable at such an extended age, and so that's why I use it. Yesterday was pretty much a classic bowl lather, and a couple of you guys, HD Shaves, commented as well, and was it Greg that also commented that they were glad to see an old school, because man, for the last long time I've been playing around with this slurry lather technique and just exploring it with different soap bases, and so finally I stepped back to my roots, where most of my videos, especially before the last couple years, have a bowl lather. Let's just do that again, huh? You guys were happy to see it, so we'll do that again. The splash after shave and the cologne are also Midnight Stag, and they will be used as well. The ring of death, how long will that last? I'm kind of curious. I didn't need to load for as long as I did yesterday. Try not to do it quite for that much. Before I do load, I want to get my the blade loaded into the razor. Show you the etchings and stuff to identify it. The N up there, the one down there, maybe a little Sharpie dot you can see on that side, and then the curve to the blade in the place where I dropped it near this corner right there. Keeping it facing the same direction as usual. Who knows? One thing this little experiment of how long can I use this blade may show is, what if a secret was not to flip a blade? And maybe that's the secret to longevity. That would be funny, wouldn't it? I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but I know I haven't flipped this one and it's working great. All right, so now let's load. Still smells great. Not quite as strong as it used to be, but that's okay. I'm going to shake. Lightly wet used to be when I was bowl lathering a lot. That was my standard. So let's go for that again. Too wet, and I would end up not picking up enough soap. Too dry, kind of the same thing. And an optimum place was lightly wet, because that would get on the soap and be start to bring it up and wake it up and get it up into the brush. It seemed to be in the most efficient manner for me. But again, we will just kind of watch it and see when the suds develop, because only the outside of the knot, because of that ring, only the outside of the knot is touching the soap. Let's just see if that's going to be enough there. We got a little bit of overflow. We've got a little bit of drip. Let's just see if that will be enough. And I'm going to take the excess here. There's a little bit of water in there. Let's use that soap into today's shave as well. Get my face wet now. So over on our wet shaving, it's a sub on the Reddit communities. It's where this Austere August shaving contest, is it a contest? In a sense it is, in a sense it's not. There's really not a prize unless you do certain side challenges. The Frio Dur, if I'm pronouncing that at all correctly, brand of straight razors of antiquity. Those straight razors are part of a side contest. You can buy one of those and use it for the entire month. And one of the guys, just on his own, I think decided to, put out some kind of prize at the end if you did all 31 days, something like that. That's pretty neat. There's another challenge called Raw Hoggin', which is for people who take a boar brush, and I really like this challenge. Unfortunately, I think I've pretty much used all of my boar brushes, and I've used a good number of them, and so me just doing that challenge to buy another brush is kind of wasteful for me. I don't really know that there is one that I want to buy out there because I just have so many. But the point is to start that brush with day one being your first shave with it. You have to post an unboxing video or an unboxing series of photos and show progress on your brush as you're using it during the month. And the reason I love it is because if you're a regular watcher of my channel, you know I use boar brushes a lot. Matter of fact, this may be the first Austere August where I have not used a boar brush for the month. And I've got a borathon where I'm taking about a dozen different boar brushes, all up to maturity together at the same rate, because I'm interested to see how they all change, watch their differences. So I really like boar brushes. Many of them are so inexpensive, much less expensive than Badger brushes, and they provide a wonderful value. There's this really neat way that they change and mature with the way their tips split and the way their knot becomes softer and the splay increases. It's almost like an old friend. And I really love that, and especially the inexpensive nature of it. Really, there are some boars out there that are $15 and that will be a great lifetime brush and deliver terrific shaves and at that price, and it's amazing. As you may notice, I haven't added any water. Why don't we try that? Because we had a good bit of water in the brush. This is a big knot, so it held a good bit. And then I poured that excess back into the bowl from the soap tub after I loaded it. Why don't we just try yesterday's method? I did add some more water from the spigot there, faucet. But it didn't maintain a lightly creamy texture. It was slippery enough to shave. It was slick enough to shave. But this OG tallow base here is just like that. So who knows the different things I do this month to play around with the lather. if I can try to figure out a way to get to that lightly creamy stage. I don't think I ever can with this soap base. It just kind of stays a little on the airy side. And if I add more water, it doesn't seem like it turns more into a luxurious cream. You just have to kind of take what you get with it. But I love from Chiseled Face the scents that they have. And so I have plenty of these soaps in my collection, mainly because of the scents, not really because of the performance. So let's just see what we get using a little bit less water, because this one definitely breaks easily if you add water so that it flows like a lightly creamy soap. Then you can kind of feel the lather start to be less than and lose its creaminess. This one definitely has a more luxurious feel because it's drier. And so in my personal notes for this base, I have written to run it drier than I usually do. When a lather starts building up around my goatee like this, with this kind of viscosity, that's almost always a sign that I can take it wetter if I want, but not this base. And there's a couple other bases similar. It's kind of an old school tallow type base like the LA Shaving Soap Company and a few others, kind of the older ones. I'm so glad that Sterling and a lot of the more modern soap bases years ago changed it up away from that kind of lather, because I do enjoy its kind of creamy luxury a lot more. As always with this razor blade, it is lightly tuggy, but not really bothersome. So I keep using it. I discussed in yesterday's shave the criteria that I'm using to keep this blade going, or I should say the criteria that will make me stop using it. I did have a little bit, and I told you this yesterday, a little bit of tenderness somewhere around here after the shave, and it almost didn't bother me the whole day, but toward the late afternoon of the day, I was coming back in from doing a little fishing with my dad and my daughter, and it was hot outside. It was a hot day, and with sweat and all that, that little tenderness, the little ting, was starting to show itself again. So that was really it was interesting. I don't have as many places to put my razor, and so I'm looking around. I've just rinsed it, and I want to put it down so that I can use the brush, and there wasn't really a place to set it. It took me a second to find somewhere. So that lather, while it feels nice and thick and creamy, it makes the brush feel softer. A lot of times a dry lather will do that. There wasn't really any wetness or slickness there just now before I put that water on. There was no residual, so that's just what you get when you run your lather this dry. I usually argue that that's also less kind to your blade edge. I'm really enjoying this brush this month. It's one of my favorites with how easy it is to display. So it gives it kind of a plush feel, and then the tips are just super soft. Try to find the razor again. Cross grain now for the second pass. I don't mind it when I have to do 5 passes with this old blade, because after the first pass, most of the passes are fairly quick. And there we go. Now I would say maybe 80% of the stubble has been removed. So the rest of the passes are just kind of clean up, fine tuning. So with the raw hogging challenge, I like that guys will learn about boar brushes. They will, because they have to use it for a whole month, they'll definitely get into the zone with a boar where you get past that fussy stage in the break-in process. Badgers don't have nearly the same chore of a break-in process that boars do. And if you can see, again, I've got tons of lather. I did not need to load for that long. And so maybe the first week, guys will complain that that new boar brush is not giving them the kind of shaves that they want, not giving them a good lather. I know in my own case, young boars, I'd have to go back and load from the soap in many times. Different boar brushes, some Ogs, Zeniths, Omegas. You have to go back to the tub and pick up more soap. Almost build the lather afresh on your face when it's young and immature. But with the Simogs and the Zeniths, it wouldn't take but maybe 5 to 12 uses, in one case 15, I think, before it would start making good lather, with you only needing to load soap on it once. And so since guys are committing to 1 month with it, and whoever created that challenge is offering everybody a prize, I think. And maybe it's a raffle where if 40 guys do it, then the guy didn't have to send out 40 brand new boar brushes or whatever the prize is. A little water. That's my third pass. Definitely need these water rinses to refresh my face, since this lather is on the drier side. Now the fourth pass begins. Cross grain again. Maybe one of the reasons I'm able to make this blade go for so long is that I'm not doing against the grain passes. It could be that the roughness and the dullness of the blade edge would be too harsh if I was trying to go ATG. And so in a sense, it's not a fair comparison with those of you who always go against the grain. But for me, I rarely go against the grain ever. So for folks like me, it is kind of fair. And also, we're talking about a reasonable shave. And so going against the grain, you don't have to do that. It's not mandatory for your shave. as long as you can get close enough for what you need it with going different cross grain patterns. And you'll see me, I pretty much do the same cross grain pattern all the time. And because I found that to be the most effective. There are some cross grain strokes that I could do that coming at it from different angles, you know, to get the hairs better. Sometimes they're just really awkward. There's just one in particular over here where I go back, especially just under my jawline. I could go back that way, and I might do that this pass. So this is my 5th pass, and let's just hope that this will trim everything down. Man, this brush feels great. These dry lathers, you know, you can relatively dry. I can see why people like them and stick to them stubbornly and say that they're, you know, wet and slick when they're really not, because they do give a plush, comfy feeling to your face. Oh yeah, and another move that I do, it's been a while since I've used this razor and blade, is a slant, a diagonal up like that to add kind of a slicing motion. Now here's that, this is very effective at this certain spot where my hair has this weird turn to it. So then I'll do that diagonal again on this other side. Lift my, tilt my head over to stretch and straighten my skin a little bit. Sometimes I can grab my neck, but it does a pretty good job of making it tight, and you can inflate your cheeks as well. Get that flat surface. Trim up the little border hairs at the bottom of the neckline. And there we go. Yeah, see, this is cut a lot better. I might just take a little bit, a trouble spot here. And that's a lot better. And we're done. Let's just rinse things off and clean things. Like the razor and the brush and the bowl and my face. I've got another 3 or 4 passes of lather in the bowl. So again, I loaded for longer than I needed to. And here's the brush. After a good rinse out, you can see how it has a big bloom. The B batches from Declaration Grooming, a lot of times when they're mounted at the standard loft, you won't see too much of this third color here. This black band will go all the way to the handle, and this is a 2-band knot, and but the thickness of this tells you it's a 2-band, and even though you can see 1, 2, 3 bands, this is just lofted a little longer than usual. And the problem is, for me at least, when these Declaration knots are lofted at their standard height, they just are restricted, and they have a much higher backbone. The stiffness of the shafts there, because it's so densely packed, just doesn't allow it to move on your face in a comfortable way for me. And so when I see one like this that's a little higher, and Scott doesn't mount them at custom lofts. He mounts them each time according to his own standards, because he doesn't want them to be floppy. So how that one, I believe it was lofted by him, how that one got to be a little non-standard I don't know, but I'm very grateful. I once had a B5 that my first one that I ever ordered from him years ago. That was a lesson in just because you pay more for something, it doesn't mean you're going to get something that you like. It would have been something that I liked if I liked strong backbone brushes. But he's committed to my happiness, and so he'll take the brush back and give you a full refund. That's the kind of the guarantee that he gives because he wants you to be happy as a buyer of his products, and because he knows if he doesn't make people happy, then people aren't going to buy his stuff. And so my on that brush, it just felt like I had a stick, and I had the end of a stick. May have had it was a B5, and the end of the stick would have these nice little soft bristle tips, but it just had very little splay at all, and it wasn't comfortable to use. And even after I gave it a few shaves, it opened up just a little, but not enough. And so I contacted him. He was great to interact with. He said, "Hey, send the brush back to me. I'll take a look at it. I'll make sure that it's in my spec," recognizing that while I may not want the brush to be if it was maybe if it wasn't in his spec, then he would make it in his range of acceptability. But it could also be that that's just not a good match for me. And if so, he would have taken that brush back if I wanted to. And the one he sent me back was very similar. May have had a little bit extra loft, maybe a millimeter or something. He said it was out of spec, but just a tiny amount. It could have been lofted a little longer. But unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. And what I actually ended up doing was busting up the handle and then using that knot in another brush, and I was able to loft it myself where I wanted, and it's a much more it's much I'm much happier with that knot now. We have everything rinsed out: the brush, the bowl, my face. So let's use the splash. It's nice in the summer because the menthol gives many guys a cooling sensation. I've gotten used to it because I do this challenge, but I do not like this level of menthol normally. Just burns on my skin instead of a cooling sensation. If when you store your razor, open it up, give it a good rinse out, shake some of that water out, set it in a safe place. If you want to keep the blade in the razor, since I'm using the same blade and razor all month, there's no reason to take it out unless I'm traveling or something like that. Little note, if you have aftershave products, you can choose the splashes like this. Some contain menthol, some don't. They're alcohol based, pretty much always. They do have another area called toners, and they may look similar, but they're not alcohol based usually. They're kinder to your skin. They could be like an aloe type or a witch hazel type base that doesn't dry your skin out quite as much. And so those are called toners, a little less popular than the alcohol splashes. As a matter of fact, in America, sometimes this is actually called a lotion, an aftershave lotion, even though it's an alcohol product. And what we call them balms when it is a more lotion looking product. It looks more like an actual lotion. And that rarely has alcohol, and it gives you lots of moisture treatment after your shave. And so if you find that an alcohol splash dries you out a little too much, then you can get a balm instead. And the balms are especially useful to guys in the winter months. Sometimes the balm is a little heavy for the summer months, and so some guys do alcohol splashes in the summer and in the winter, or if whenever it's cold in their climate, they will use a balm. Whenever it's warm, they might use a splash. The greatest thing about the splash is you get that alcohol burn sometimes, and to me that's a little bit of a detraction. I don't really enjoy that. Some guys do enjoy it. It wakes them up in the morning, that sort of thing. But because it's alcohol based, it will last and sit on your shelf for years and years. Like this is an old one by, honestly, it really might be 2015, 16, or 17, something like that. And it hasn't lost any of its power. Even the scent strength is great. But a balm can go bad after a year. I've had one go bad after a year. I've got others that are staying well, but I had a Cella balm that I really enjoyed the use of, but I didn't know that it was going to go rancid. And so I didn't end up using too much of it. I think maybe I used 40 to 60 uses of it because I just had a big rotation of balms and splashes. And I didn't know I needed to use it up. So if you want to have a larger collection of aftershave products and you want to have a lot of them be balms, that could be a negative factor for you. They could expire before you actually get around to using all of them. So here's the blade again. Some guys wonder if I strop it. There are guys out there who'll take their razor and the blade, when it's in the razor, they will go backwards over their skin or a pair of jeans. Nope, I don't do that. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think in many cases you're doing more to dull your blade than you are to sharpen it. But this little guy, I have not done any kind of stropping to it on any kind of product or any kind of treatment to try to help the edge. It just keeps on going. I do at the end of almost every shave, I will take the washcloth that's sitting on the counter somewhere, and it'll be wet, and I'll just put it down, and maybe I'll fold over the other side and just tap it to get rid of that excess moisture, trying not to let little rust build up on the edges or something. So just keep it dry, and that's the only treatment that I do with the blade. And now, some guys will have a Stag challenge where they will put the number of sprays of the cologne on them that equals the number of days in the month. And so today would be like 2 sprays because it's the second. I don't do that. This is, it's not a cheap, not a super expensive price for this cologne, but it's also not cheap. And I don't want to waste it. I really enjoy the smell, so it's not some kind of weird challenge for me to be noxious as I go through my day and walk by people and make them choke. I'm not trying to do that. And I put the 546 dot on my little tracking card there. So today's shave was the drier type lather. Yesterday was wetter, and it just didn't have that creamy feel. It didn't have a luxury feel to it. This one had the luxury feel, but it didn't have the same high quality, the better slickness that yesterday's had. So you kind of have to, it's a trade-off with this type of base. Unless you use the slurry lather method that I used all of last August to somehow make that slickness jump out. It keeps it separated maybe a little bit and puts more of the soap on your face. I don't know what it does, but it does it, and I get a whole different level of slickness with the slurry type of lather. Well, that's the shave for today. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Thanks so much for watching this August. As many times as you can jump in, you can even join and pick something and use it for the rest of the month if you want. Let me know in the comments. And I already a couple of you guys have mentioned Mongo. I think maybe you said something that you were going to do Austere August as well, and that's really cool. Thanks, guys. Take care now.